What do they do post-retirement?
What will JaVale McGee do post-retirement?
Well, he's actually part of 5%. You see, and I'm going to
consider JaVale part of the 5% though.
Okay,
yes, I would.
This is a talk record.
So like
yes,
I'm talking
no,
about,
no,
I'm talking about like bottom third.
No, we're talking for real. JaVale McGee's part of the 5%.
Oh my God, it's been so long. We're back. Wow. Ow.
You hit yourself.
I did indeed hit myself. It's the Sportculation Podcast. I, of course, am Mr. Yusuf Rashid, flanked by, as usual,
I am Parse.
And I'm Anton.
We got it right. We're just keep getting it right. We're back after a little bit of a hiatus, at least for Spotify. The YouTube channel's been a little busy with myself and Tyler Richmond, our friend of the show, who hockey's been, crazy recently, so we've been on that. But the three of us have been talking about certain things, and this is a topic that I've kind of wanted to get to for a while. I never really knew how we were going to get to it, but I think recently with some news that's come out, I think it's a good idea. So Anton.
Yeah. So the news that has come out is not controversial in nature at all. Or, I mean, not really controversial in nature. It's just the thing that I wanted to talk about is, so David Beckham recently, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was David Beckham recently was reported to be working on a series, I believe with, I don't know if it was Amazon Studios or someone to create a Last Dance like docuseries like Michael Jordan had for with Netflix. Yep. And I guess also ESPN Films. So my question and the topic of today's video or today's podcast is, what are athletes to do after upon retirement? Because we all know that your body really only works until like 30 something for pro sports, unless you're a golfer, in which case they have I think they have the 50 plus tournaments. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they have
like 50 to like mid 60s, I think it is.
No, it's just like 50 up. Like is
that it? Okay, I thought there was like a maximum on that.
So apart from those certain special situations, generally you kind of retire like at 30, and you're kind of done. So like, what is someone to do? So what are some other situations where this has happened? I believe so Serena Williams is also working on some movie stuff, TV stuff with I believe Amazon Studios as well. I'll have to pull that up. It's as per Deadline. As per Deadline Hollywood. So yeah, what do you guys think? Like, what would you do as an athlete after retirement? Like,
sleep, stop
sleep.
lifting.
Yeah, sleep, get some recoup that body,
just
recoup
sleep
that energy
in your bed of money.
Catch up on those Netflix episodes I've been missing.
Yeah.
Because your life as an athlete is 24/7, right? 24/7, eating nutritious. Obviously your body's working like double what anybody else was. You're lifting more, you're pushing your body beyond limits. On top of that, you're traveling, right? Across, wherever you're traveling to, because there's games all over the country or all over the world. So you have to travel. So yeah, I think one of the first things they do is they try to catch up on, like, kind of being normal for a sec. It's not going to feel right at all, for sure, unless you're Charles Barkley. But in other news, I mean, yeah, if I was an athlete that was around that time of retirement, I surely would have probably want to take those few years to spend with family. Catch up with people, kind of live a more normal, slower down life. So I probably wouldn't travel as much, but definitely would be, into, finances, into reading, into getting into like that hustle and bustle of, like, what my kids are up to, things like that. Because that's usually what you hear nowadays from these athletes who retired. There are some, I know back when we were born, because we were all 96 kids. So when we were like in those days, usually athletes that retired still be like in the club trying to live out the last, times of fame. until they just uh, well, spend it all. But in this day and age, a lot of the athletes are a lot more financially capable. They honestly are a lot more financial savvy when it comes to the future. So a lot of them are investing. Just to give you guys a little bit of a taste of that, I mean, KD has announced that he put a lot of money into investment to Coinbase, and he's reaping the benefits of that.
Oh, is he getting on that?
He's gotten on that. So you have also J.R. Smith after retirement. What is he doing? Well, he's gaming, and he literally makes money streaming Call of Duty. So there's a lot more avenues that these players are going into now to make money off. But what would I do personally? That, and in terms of your question, like what do athletes do? It ranges, and I'm very, very happy it ranges.
Yeah, what would you do, Yusuf? If like I don't know what sport you would go into.
Probably
and retire
from golf.
Golf? I mean, you could still
golf.
work on golf.
I could. If I was any taller and took it more seriously, I would have gone into rugby. But I mean, I'm not sure. I think like this is a question that honestly I like to ask myself too. Like being a musician is like when my body eventually gives out, like I just can't play as much anymore, like as often, right? Then like what's next? Definitely like recoup like family time. I think with athletes, as Parse was saying, athletes nowadays are a little more like financially like smart and just a little wiser nowadays. Like they've learned from the past generations, right? So you notice that a lot of these athletes now are like huge family guys, like Kawhi, for example, who I'm pretty sure has no emotion in his body whatsoever. He's only 29. Yeah, I think he's hitting 30 this year. But like he's already...
He is a fun guy.
He's a
fun
guy.
He's a fun guy.
He's a fun guy, and fun guy likes fun. But like Kawhi's like, I think he turns 30 this year. And he, from what I've heard, is already like he spends as much time with his family as he can. Like the man left Toronto for more or less the reason of just being closer to his family. And I get that, when you're on the road so long. Investments are another big things Parse mentioned. You have, KD, who's getting into Bitcoin and everything. You have a lot of athletes actually right now, even, not even retired, like not even in their prime yet, are starting to get into these investments. Out of it, you have other notable names like Shaq. I think.
Oh yeah, Shaq is doing a lot of things.
He has his name
which
on
is
like
what
everything.
I really,
right?
I mean,
so,
as crazy as Shaq is, I love how experimental he is.
Very experimental.
As much of an experience Kazam was, at least he tried something. Yeah, it was not great.
No, it
but
wasn't.
Hey, he tried, and now he's like, isn't he like a Papa? Was it Papa John's?
He owns, I think, more than 20 Papa John's locations. He also owns a bunch of like restaurants in Atlanta. He's got investments in Five Guys as well. Yeah, and I believe he's also on the board of directors for Papa John's. So Jack's
he is also like he's starting a I think either creative or a strategic. It's like a advertising agency that he started to
something like that,
to like specifically for underrepresented groups.
Okay, that's good.
For companies of that nature, and also to hire talent of underrepresented groups. So female and Black, Indigenous, people of color, and LGBTQ plus people, talent.
Wow.
And so he's really investing in that. So really, he's got his arms just everywhere.
He's also a DJ.
Oh, he's also a DJ.
Can't forget that part.
I mean, you know what? Of course, he has his hands on everything. He has massive hands.
That's what you get when you're 7'1".
He's got his hands on everything.
But you look at other athletes now, especially like those that are getting like a little older. You don't really see it with like hockey players as much because they tend to just normally stick to themselves. Like they're not going to be public about anything to do. But other career options are there. Like for example, like if I was ever an athlete, or like whenever I'm done with music in like 50 years or something, or 10, if tendonitis has its way with me, just like find something new to do. Like I know Aaron Rodgers, the Super Bowl winning quarterback for the Green Bay Packers and noted nerd. He is really open to the potential idea of actually becoming the next full-time Jeopardy hosts after once they like figure out who's going to replace Trebek.
Did you know, like, I didn't find out until like a few months ago that he was engaged to Shailene Woodley. I didn't find that out.
Oh, that's right. He is. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, whoa, okay. Like,
yeah. Before that, he was with Olivia Munn, but yeah, no. So, watching Aaron Rodgers, who is still currently playing in the NFL, already talking about the next chapter of his life. It's really interesting because a lot of players will tell you, maybe own a team one day or something like that. But it's something different. And owning a team is, I think, the big one for a lot of like high profile athletes nowadays. You have, LeBron, who now has minority. It's like a small amount. I think it's like 3 or 4%.
You got A-Rod coming in.
A-Rod wants to buy the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, he's coming in with half a 50-50 partnership with the guy who started Jet.com.
Yeah,
and it's like it's worth $1.5 billion. So that's a lot of money.
Yeah. Of course, you have the great Michael Jordan, who now owns the Charlotte Hornets, right? He's owned it for a while. He's owned it for about 11 years now. I think 2010 is when he bought them. You have Derek Jeter, who is now the co-owner and president of the Marlins, I believe. Yeah, the Marlins. Yes. And announced literally earlier today, famed Miami Heat star Dwayne Wade is now a part owner of the Utah Jazz. I believe it's a minority share, but he is now a shareholder in the Utah Jazz. Which, like, hey, more power to you.
Friends in high places, right?
Friends in high places. Yeah,
really motivated them to do that. So it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And it's always interesting to me to see when, like, especially with athletes, when they decide, like, not when, more if they decide to like go into team ownership, whether or not they stay in the sport they played for their whole career or they move on to something else. So, for example, A-Rod, baseball player, looking to buy a basketball team, right? Jeter made sense, baseball. MJ made sense, baseball. LeBron going to baseball, even though he's a basketball player. I believe James Harden owns a minority stake in the Houston Dynamo, which is the MLS team, the Major League Soccer team, who apparently also is partly like minority owned by famed boxer Oscar De La Hoya, which I actually found out reading up earlier. So yeah, it's always interesting to me to see like but when athletes decide to go like to another sport to go invest in that, and like you sort of wonder, I think at first, like how things are going to be when a guy that doesn't know that sport owns a team of that sport, which is what like these two would know, because when we were talking about the Alex Rodriguez thing a few days ago, I have my doubts about it, but we'll see. So.
Well, I think the next question is like, how positive is this for those communities, right? And speaking more about, communities of color and things like that, kids who, I mean, we could talk about, A-Rod and Jeter and how a lot of kids who are growing up in that Colombian and Cuban markets who, dream of being baseball players, these are your idols doing this. So how good of it's to see, this happening in your community.
I mean, we're the three of us are considered minorities in this country, so I think I can't speak for each individual experience, but I think I could safely say that it's nice seeing representation on screen or like just in the news of positive on screen representation of hearing that like, oh, this person's like just absolutely killing it right now. And like when Shang-Chi was announced, I know that like the Chinese Canadian, Chinese American community, Asian American community was like really hyped for that coming out with oh shoot, Simu Liu, Simu Liu. Yeah, everyone was like really hyped about that, especially like the Toronto. Asians, because he's from Toronto.
Is he from Markham?
I think he's from Toronto, and then he went to Western University, I think.
Okay.
Or Toronto. Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah. So just like seeing people like from your area, like the people people who look like you. I definitely do think that like that kind of representation is very positive. Like Sue Bird is part owner of the was it Atlanta Dream? Is it? No,
I believe it's Dream or Storm.
I don't think it's Storm.
I think it's okay. Yeah, the Atlanta WNBA basketball team. And so yeah, she's going into that. You got Serena Williams doing documentaries now. Well, I mean, so yeah, like female athletes.
That's good for the representation.
Yeah.
Going back to your first question, right? With I believe you said Rooney was doing his documentary now.
Beckham.
Sorry, Beckham.
It's with Netflix, by the way. I looked that up.
That's good. So, people taking that last dance approach, right? Good way to have your legacies kind of stay forever. Give the rights to a company that has all the young people's attention right now in terms of binge watching something. And on like another benefit from this also is you finally get to tell a story in somewhat your own way, because we all know how restricting it is to run your information off of ESPN or CBS. Gets a little misconstrued. So by going the Netflix route, it could open some doors out for you to be able to talk like yourself. There's a lot of the blurping has been cut out of this. It's going to be straight up 18 plus. So
yeah,
it's kind of fun to see. And I don't really know that much about Beckham, to be personal about it. Like, I know he is one of those great footballers, but I grew up in a time where there was Kaká and there was Ronaldinho.
Yeah, we grew up with essentially we grew up in like the Ronaldo, Messi era. Beckham was pretty much done by then. Like cool. Yeah, like by the time we were young, it was like the end of like the Beckham Zidane era. So
yeah, I think it Bend It Like Beckham that came out in mid 2000s, right?
That
movie.
I swear that came out in the 90s. That was in the 2000s.
With Amanda Bynes, bro.
Yeah,
no. That was different. Keira Knightley. It was with Keira Knightley. Amanda Bynes She's the Man, I think.
Oh yeah, that's the one with.
Yeah.
That's the one with.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, wait.
We're gonna do another podcast on sports movies.
Apparently.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's interesting to see that like a lot of athletes are taking that approach, because like people have seen how widely like popular The Last Dance became. People that weren't even sports fans were watching it. Like, you get this.
There wasn't that much to watch.
Well, consider.
No, there was plenty to watch, but it's just like right when COVID hit, or like the month after COVID hit. Like,
yeah.
So everybody
would do that.
It was either that or Tiger King. What would you rather watch? A psycho dude that owns tigers or a psycho dude that plays basketball? Pick your pill. But to get people sort of intrigued, especially for people that were fans of like the 90s era, like the 90s Dynasty Bulls and all that, to see like what exactly went down in that time, like how did this success come about. That's why I always find it interesting that like players that are currently playing right now are also working on things like that. Like, one day in the future, us being from Toronto, I feel like one day we're going to get something like The Last Dance for like Austin Matthews, John Tavares. I'm pretty sure we're going to get something about Kyle Lowry at some point in time. I'm
hoping one for Vince. That's who I really want. I want to see Vince.
I think there is one.
There is one. It's coming out next year.
Yeah. It's co-produced by Travis Scott and Drake, I think.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
To me, Vince is Toronto. Like,
Vince, that's why Drake is
exactly. That's why Drake's doing it, man.
Of course, you got to have Drake in there.
I think it's next year, like the year after that or something like that. But so they're like, they work on all this, and thinking about it is like, I know this year for like the current hockey season, the Toronto Maple Leafs apparently have had a production and filming team follow them around for every game this season, because they want to make a Last Dance type documentary for this season, and the whole time, in case they like get every time, just in case, my brain every time I find out like they're around, I'm like, oh my god, they might actually win the Stanley Cup this year. Because like, it's these things that you look back in history and you're like, hey, like how did that happen? Like for the Last Dance, for that 90s, like I said, the 90s Dynasty team, right? You wonder like how everything ran. And for someone like Michael Jordan, you're like, what was he thinking that whole time? And you get this very, I wouldn't say like entirely in-depth look, but it was pretty well like detailed. Even not even for like players specifically, like you talk about teams, I feel like one day when, a bunch of the older guys in MLB retire, I think if there's 2 documentaries they're going to eventually make, like post-retirement, we're going to get one on the Cubs. Yeah, Parse is smiling. I know you're freaking shut up.
That wasn't even my first guess. I want one on Big Papi Ortiz.
Oh, see, I want one on David Ortiz. I want one on the Astros.
Oh, the Astros.
I want one on the 2017 Astros.
You're a mean guy.
I want one on the 2017.
I'm sure there's like there's what
Yeah.
I'm sure there's like a ESPN one out there.
Yeah, there's
like
probably there's going to be a 30
stuff.
30 for 30 on that at some point. I don't think it'd be like a multi-episode like episodic series, but like David Ortiz would probably get one. Like Tom Brady, dude's not done yet, but everyone knows.
Tom Brady's got to have one.
We're gonna get some just
no
over the top, like giant episodic like series, multi-season episodic series detailing like his entire 19-year career with the Patriots.
It's an insane amount of time.
It's a ridiculous amount of time, and for someone like that, we had talked about this in an episode a while ago, talking about like athletes on a Mount Rushmore. Like Brady's up there. He's one guy that would probably it's no question he deserves one of that when he eventually retires at the age of 80.
Okay, so now I have another question. This one is about because so far I've talked about all these players. Generally, they're top 5% players of it within the league, right? Like top 10%
more
players.
Maybe I think top 5. I'd say top 5.
But we haven't talked about like the middle of the road people, the people who are just there to help out. Like,
well, the first part about that.
What do they do post retirement?
What will JaVale McGee do post retirement?
Well, he's actually part of the 5%. You see, and I'm going to talk
consider JaVale part of the 5% though.
Okay,
yes, I would.
This is a talk record.
So I'm talking about like bottom third.
No. We're talking. I'm for real. JaVale McGee's part of the 5%. You want to know why? This is just strict NBA.
Is it because of the rings?
No, it has nothing to do with how many rings you got.
Okay.
NBA is a little different. Okay, so I don't know about MLB. I don't know about NHL. But for NBA, okay, the top 5%, you're looking at playing for at least 13 to 14 years.
Right.
Now, I don't want to boil people's bubbles, but there's about 441 NBA athletes on the NBA roster. Okay. Now, if that number is a little skewed, maybe it's a little more than 440, maybe it's 450 or 430. I know it's over 400 NBA players.
Depending on whether or not you count the two-way deals.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends. But okay, if you want to talk all 12 guys, because 12 guys on the roster times 30 teams, you do the math. But seriously, there's that many people. Now
360.
Give or take the people who are on two-way deals, people coming from the G League back down, things like that.
Maybe 320.
You come back up and come down, not retire. Come up like look at Greg Oden.
Anywhere between 330 to 360 players.
So here's the thing: of those players, you probably only know about 10, 12, maybe even 20 guys who have been in the league plus 15 years. The rest of them come in and out. So when you talk to me about, what do we talk about the other guys who just help out, like those role players, things like that you're saying? I'm telling you right now, those are the guys that I look at, and I'm very, very frightened for them, because everybody, when they come into the league, has this idea and this notion that they're going to be doing this for 20 years. And not everybody has a durability of LeBron. Not everybody has a skill level of Kobe. Not everybody has the intellect of Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili. And not everybody has the fundamental game to be able to stick in with no matter what formula is put around you, like Tim Duncan.
And not everybody is as big as Shaq.
Not everybody is as big as Shaq. So when you're talking about those guys who are, who play for 3 years, it's a very sad and slippery slope, because those guys end up having to reinvent themselves. I can tell you about some Toronto boys who have gone through this. Let's talk about Tyler Ennis. And you guys probably don't remember this guy, right?
Tyler Ennis.
Yo, he was one of the top picks in the draft. Played about 6 to 8 seasons. Bounced around from team to team.
Yep.
And ended up playing in the G League. I think he plays in the 905 right now. Let's talk about Greg Oden, just for familiar's sake, right? first overall pick in the 2014 or 2015 draft.
Greg Oden? No, 2014 was Wiggins.
Sorry, no, I'm talking about Anthony Bennett. Sorry, my bad. Sorry,
Greg. Anthony Bennett. Yeah.
Forgive me, Greg. You're watching this good. Forgive me. I loved you. I loved
Anthony Bennett was the first overall in 2015, I think.
So Anthony Bennett, first overall pick, 2015, said. And look at his career. He played, I think, 1 or 2 seasons in the NBA, bounced around a couple teams, then he got sent to the G League. He's
2013.
2013. Right? I believe I'm right when I say 2-3 seasons. That's all I remember of him, to be honest with you. Like he played for the Cavs. He played for.
Honest to God, I think he played.
He played for Portland.
Yeah, you know, but yeah, I get you.
Yeah, but yeah, you
train of that, like
yeah.
Jeremy Lin.
Jeremy is not part of the top 5%, but Jeremy's lucky, man. Jeremy is very lucky. Because what happened to Jeremy was he had the Linsanity in the last years of the Kobe years. So we're talking 2016, right? Yeah. 2015 even, right? Got drafted from Harvard to the NBA. I think second round, not first. But
I think so.
When he got there, he actually made himself a big name, got himself a huge contract, go play with the Rockets. Then, of course, got jumped over to the Lakers, things like that. Then hopped himself over to Toronto, gets a ring. Not many people get to do that. This is like Brian Scalabrine type foolery. Okay, and we all know how Brian Scalabrine.
This is Patrick McCall.
Hey, don't diss the great name of Brian Scalabrine. Excuse me.
To go play for the Shanghai Sharks for a year, and then to jump back into the NBA now.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think it was Beijing Ducks. I think
Beijing Ducks, and then to jump back into the NBA now. Look at Jimmer Fredette. If you guys want to talk about people who are part of the 10%, I mean, he's lucky too, because what happened with him is he only played 1 season, 2 seasons in the NBA, and he got shipped all the way over to Shanghai Sharks. And he has a big career over there, about 10 to 12 seasons, but he's been wanting to get back into the NBA. Guys who are in their rookie deals and only last about 2-3 years, will end up with those guys. They either go play in Europe, they go play in South America, they go play in China, or they end up going back to where they came from and helping out with the development program. If they're lucky, the unlucky ones, I'm going to be straight up with it because I know we're not really in a condition to center everything. They probably go back to the lives that they lived before stardom, before the NBA. And that's a very tough reality to go through, how you spend your entire life playing to make it to the NBA, to realize you're not good enough to stay there. You got to go back to the life you were living.
I think a lot of them will often, not all of them, of course, some of them would just, get jobs at a consulting firm like a McKinsey or something like that. Some of them might go and get a law degree, or some of them might go and go to medical school, become very successful doctors or whatever. But I think a lot of them, from what I see, it's like they often go into sports commentary, or they'll go into assistant coaching, those kinds of jobs, or they'll go and teach, coach a Little League or something like that.
Yeah, you've got your Tony Romo's, Brett Favre, of course, inside the NBA featuring for the third time we mentioned him, Shaq.
This is a quick question: did Lonzo Ball get his UCLA degree? Just one.
No, he only did a year.
So you guys are talking about these guys like they already had their degree, man. I mean, some of these guys didn't even finish. Some of these guys played 1 year college.
Well, see, that's the thing, though, right? That's this is a whole other conversation for another time with the whole one and done thing with basketball, which is the fact that they're able to do that. With football, and I believe now with the with hockey for the NCAA, you have to be there at least a minimum, I think, of 2 to 3 years until you can either leave and go for the draft.
NHL, man. Look at the NHL for
the NHL. There are a lot of players that actually have degrees. Did you know Carey Price has a degree in poli-sci, I think it is.
Yeah, but some of them don't make Carey Price kind of career numbers, Some of them end up going back to play in the KPL, or they go and
or somewhere else, yeah.
Or
you have
professional players in the OHL. I'm being serious. Some of them don't make it.
No, there's other stories you hear about, basically reserve players, what's his name, goaltender Scott Foster, who made the miraculous save as a backup goalie, I think about 3 years ago now, for the Chicago Blackhawks. He is a accountant, I believe it is, and they called him last minute because the Blackhawks didn't have a goalie that was healthy enough to suit up. So they gave him a call and said, "Hey, we have gear for you. Just get over here." And he was like, "Well, I got to leave work early." It's the fact that these guys, are still on a reserve list, but have, so to speak, regular day jobs.
I wish them. I mean, not everybody gets the sunshine and rainbows of the league, but in the way that you retire, it's not always positive as well. And we gotta keep that in mind. So
well, that's the problem I realize sometimes, like looking at athletes, right? Like those, especially if you unfortunately have to retire due to injuries, like what really can you do after the fact besides like maybe commentary? Because it's like you got to take care of your health before you even think of getting back out there now.
And commentary is hard now too, because look at who you're competing against: Reggie Miller, Chris Webber,
Shaq.
Paul Pierce, Shaq.
Oh, Paul Pierce got fired, so
sometimes it's not always like commentary. It's not always just about like, oh, you were a great player.
Yeah.
It's also about like your personality.
Insight. Yeah,
like
personality and insight.
Of course, insight, but like, yeah, your ability to communicate thoughts. Which is what commentary is.
I guess that's what I mean with insight. Like you look at like Sportsnet's a really good example right now. Here in Canada, we have Sportsnet. Kevin Bieksa, who was a former NHL defenseman for almost a decade, a little more than that, played with Anaheim and Vancouver. Very, very like rough kind of player, like one of the old enforcers, basically like the last few enforcers in the league. He works for Sportsnet now. He's doing commentary for them. He works on Hockey Night in Canada. And now, granted, he wasn't a superstar player. Yeah, he was a well-known defenseman, but they're like Sportsnet said when they had brought him in, like he has, the wisdom that he has from his time playing, and the way he's able to just like give his thoughts on how the game is going and everything is like it's really, really good for Sportsnet to have someone like that. So yeah, not much really a competition thing, more than a what you can bring to the table sort of situation.
Yeah, I think it's just like, what do you, what I can't imagine what it's like to like train your whole, 0 to, or I guess like 5 to 18 year life,
your childhood is taken
your whole childhood, your teenagehood, your adolescence, and then go into very Big 6, Big 10 NCAA program, and then you finally make it into the big leagues, and then you may be there for like 2 years, 1 year, you get shot down to the minors, you like try to get back up, and you play maybe 1 or 2 games, and you're like, wow, I trained my whole life for this. Like, did you have a backup? And that's like, of course, that's something that a lot of their parents would probably say. So I would feel like they, hopefully that they do have some sort of plan. I think it would be interesting to hear more thoughts on that, like from people who were role players, and just like what they're up to now. I'm sure, like, does ESPN have like a show where it's like the Where Are They Now type of show?
I think someone did. I can't remember who. I don't think
Entertainment Tonight used to do, or whatever.
Yeah, the Where Are They Now? Like they look at like celebrities,
whatever it is.
Yeah, whichever one it was. No.
Yeah, so I think that would be interesting, just like to hear what they're up to. Like, oh, this guy is just like chilling, and he works a day job as a management consulting firm.
Yeah.
In Idaho, I don't know.
Somewhere. Well, like you hear, if you ever like listen to podcasts of retired players, like one of my favorite interviews to listen to is with Chris Pronger, famed NHL defenseman, who did his entire career, kicked the crap out of everyone in his sights, won a Stanley Cup, has 2 silver medals in the Olympics. Amazing career nonetheless. He's been retired for about 10 years now, maybe a little more. And he now works for his wife's travel agency. Or you have, I believe, Thomas Caberlet, famed former Toronto Maple Leaf, then Boston Bruin, Stanley Cup champion with the Boston Bruin, who is now a delivery driver, I believe, here in Toronto, actually, for his wife's bakery. So,
yeah. And these aren't like, we're not saying that these are sad stories, because
no, they're not.
Be, like, totally happy. Like,
they're just happy doing like, regular little things.
Retiring. Yeah. That's like one phase of your life, and then you'd move on to another job, another thing.
And it's it's different too to think about, because like athletes of like the mid the late 90s, mid 2000s that have retired. Whatever money they had made back then, they're using now. Just sort of like just take their life easy and just do something like regular, right? I feel like this is really akin to how the market has grown over the last like 20, 30 years, 30 years, 90s. In that now you have players that are making like, $30 million a year, $18 million a year, whatever it might be, whatever the number is. And these guys are the ones that are like putting their money into esports, into like investments in like team ownership, restaurants, all those things. Dogecoin, Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about
coin.
like short career spans, you got to talk about esports. Like you're done at like 25.
Yeah, I mean, 25, 26. Some
like
go to 27. But
your career is done. Your reaction time is not as fast.
No, and so that I should have brought this up later. But we've got time, I guess. Esports is an interesting thing in that, like, for the players that are aging, and eventually they're not going to be able to do this stuff as much anymore, right? It depends on like them, like how they've done financially, and it also depends on like their loyalty to the organization they've like worked for, if they've been with them for a long time. There have been more and more cases of players, whether retired or even still playing to this day, that now have like part ownership of that organization. So like in League of Legends, Bjergsen is a very notable name in the North American scene. He was the mid laner for Team Solo Mid for the last 8 years. He just retired last year. And in his retirement announcement, they also mentioned that he is now part owner of the organization. You have guys like Nadeshot, one of the greatest Call of Duty players to ever live, who of course founded and owns 100 Thieves. And you have content creators and other, professional players that are part owners of 100 Thieves. Faker, another arguably the most famous name in League of Legends in professional, is still playing to this day. He's our age. He's 25 right now. But he already has part ownership of the T1 organization. So yeah, esports is an interesting one because it's like, you have a shorter lifespan of playing, but if you have loyalty to that organization, they will go out of their way to help you out.
I mean, it's hard to say because like it's such a new thing. Esports.
It is,
and so it's hard to say where it's going to go into the future. Like there hasn't been, like we don't have any 60-year-old esports play, like former retired esports.
We don't have esports boomers yet.
Yes, we don't have esports.
We don't have boomers yet. So once esports gets boomers, then we'll figure it out. But for the most part, like, I guess.
Remember back in my day,
I know when we ran at 60 frames per second, like assuming that in the future it'll run.
Yeah, it'll be like VR stuff.
Like VR, yeah. That's everything's just gonna be virtual reality. No more actual sports. It's just gonna be virtual reality now. Yeah. It's always interesting to think of like what an athlete will do when they eventually retire, especially those that are like the upper echelon of athletes and how much they've made. Like, Mike Tyson's a really good example of someone that made a ton of money and unfortunately just blew it all. But he's, starting to make a comeback now. And then you could look at guys like LeBron, who's doing investments and building schools and, all that. You have Floyd Mayweather, who spent all his $500 million on a Bugatti-made jet. And then you have like Shaq, who I think, if anything, Shaq and LeBron are probably like the two big ones that people look at now for like how athletes are doing like investments. Because LeBron's doing all the humanitarian stuff, and Shaq is, Shaq.
Yeah, Shaq's got his hands in a lot of different businesses.
Did you know he has his own jewelry line?
I did not know that. I mean, I would not be surprised if you're like, he like handcrafts doilies and sells them on Etsy. Like he partners up with someone and sells them on Etsy. Like, yeah, sure, why not? Like,
just imagine going on Etsy and you're like, oh, that looks cute. You click the link and it's just Shaq.
Yo, dude, I bet like the super long knitting needles must like look this short, like a size of a pen in his hands. To knit a doily.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Oh, God. Now I want Shaq to open an Etsy shop. I don't know why.
Let's get on Twitter. Let's demand it.
Yeah, this is Shaq. You know what to do. But yeah, I guess we're doing final thoughts. How much time do we have? Like 10 minutes?
Yeah, like 7 to 10 minutes.
Good timing. Okay. Yeah. For me, it's like just final thoughts about the whole thing is It's nice to see that athletes are a lot smarter with their money now, and what they do after, like, I get fans will criticize it sometimes, like how fans are going after Alex Rodriguez about this whole Timberwolves thing, considering he like only recently lost his bid to buy the New York Mets. But hey, their business, they do what they do, it's their lives. It's interesting to see, I guess, as fans, like how they work with, like how they use their money after retirement, like how they decide to enjoy their lives. Do they just hide in a cabin in the woods? Do they get a big old fancy yacht? Do they start investing? Do they like build Wakanda or something?
Find vibranium somewhere.
Find vibranium, invest in vibranium, go watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yeah, that's my closing thoughts, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't even know what my closing thoughts would be, other than just really glad we had this conversation. And I hope viewers who are watching out there, it's been a little bit of some insight, some education you guys can take with you. Maybe you guys are in your young time and you're looking to become an athlete, or some esports stuff, where you just don't give up, never too old.
You got F1 F1 driver here. Parse Cottrell.
So like, you can just do whatever. But like I'm really glad we had this conversation. I hope we can also grow on it, talk more about, what athletes don't do when they're retiring. Like athletes don't just all of a sudden go into a club and shoot their pants.
The next time we find out James Harden went to a strip club,
what you don't do when you're retiring, good conversation.
Yeah, I think this is interesting because like you're sort of moving away from that idea of like the mid 20th century of you work a single job and that's the job that you'll work for the rest of your life, right? Like that was the thing for like so much. I mean, before then it was like everyone was a farmer, unless you're a blacksmith. Like everyone was a farmer, and you would do like the same job for all your life. But now it's like people go through like 5 different career changes in their life, and that's totally normal. So yeah, I think looking at what not even just like top athletes, because they'll probably be fine. They can coast on something. But I think like the other role player athletes, I think if they are able to look at what their options are, so if they're able to start building some other things, maybe leverage the attention that they have, leverage their platform. Like Troy Brown Jr., he's got a vlog going on. He's like pretty good at video editing. Like as a video editor myself, I would say he's pretty good at that. So if he wants to like leverage that into like a a vlogging career, then you could totally do that. Just be an influencer or whatever. So yeah, I think just if they take stock in what they have and what they have available to them, maybe. I mean, if they're married to a doctor, then you don't have to do anything. Just like coast on their spouse.
Married to a lawyer, anything like legit security. Yeah, you're good. You're good for the rest of your life.
Coast on the laurels of your partner and become
exactly.
House
spouse.
Yeah, the house spouse.
No, the house spouse.
House parent.
And you have kids.
Homemaker.
So. Yes.
Yeah, do whatever. And if you want, you can go and start coaching youth sports, or maybe even coaching college sports.
Yep.
You could do that too.
Yeah, there are a lot of great
develop an app. By the way, this is literally how we conversate. This is actually how we do it. We just start doing this.
Well, you could just develop an app. You could do anything. The world is your oyster now. You can go on Twitch.
This is the Sportculation.
Has been the Sportculation podcast. Going on here? This has been the Sportculation podcast. Be sure to check us out as usual on Spotify, Breaker, Google Radio, TuneIn, and of course at our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Sportculation. We're on Facebook.
Soon, Apple Podcasts. As soon
as I get some things cleared up and figured out, we're probably going to be on iTunes as well. Yeah, be sure to follow us everywhere. I can say this now at least. So normally what we do is we'd release an episode weekly. What we're going to be doing is, if we can't figure out something for next week, we've got something fun coming up in 2 weeks' time, approximately. Anton's only finding about this now, because if you've listened to the show, you know a while ago we did an episode talking about our predictions for the NHL season. The playoffs are coming up. We're going to be getting Tyler back on here and talk about how horribly wrong some of our predictions were. Hi, Buffalo. Actually, no, we were right about
Or
Buffalo.
right.
Hi, Vancouver. Yeah, that too. So we'll be
Blackhawks doing well.
Blackhawks are doing good. So yeah, we'll be planning a fun playoff prediction show and just like season recap kind of thing in about 2 weeks time. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, be sure to check us out Spotify, YouTube, wherever else you can get your podcasts. I am Yusuf.
I am Parse.
And I'm Anton.
And we will see you soon. Goodbye.
Hit that right as someone.
Wait, we got it right.